Okay, I am ready to go. Destiny, you can keep letting them in as we start. Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I hope so. Hi, I'm Margaret Collins, the founding executive director of the Center for Creative Economy. Welcome to our Bonfire Encore called Makers and Shakers. This is our monthly momentum meetup, and we are really pleased today to have our colleagues from the Idea City, Winston-Salem, and connecting with the New Ink in New York City, the new museum. We are just really excited to be collaborating with our creative entrepreneurs in New York, as well as local entrepreneurs here in Winston-Salem. So we are going to, this is our Momentum meetup, and every year and every month in Momentum, we talk about different topics. And this is our series on makers and shakers. Destiny, you can change the slide. Momentum is a monthly program. It's a membership organization. We curate topics and find really interesting things to inspire you and connect you with other creative entrepreneurs and resource providers throughout our community and beyond. You can also have a profile in our directory. You can go ahead. It is a membership organization. We have 10 meetups a year, and you get access to all the speakers' slides and a video recap. We also have an online directory, which is how your organization can be found in wonderful by wonderful people all over the world. So if you're interested in that, you go to momentum.ccetriad.com. So now I'd like to introduce our wonderful esteemed moderator, who is Ryan Schmaltz. Ryan is a startup executive and advisor with a passion for building and operating emerging technology companies from the ground up and at scale. We have worked together as he mentors our creative entrepreneurs in CCE's Velocity Accelerator. He is also director at the School of the Arts Media and Emerging Technology Lab, METAL. This is an innovative, industry-facing lab based at the world-renowned UNC School of the Arts. As METAL's founding director, Ryan has pioneered the lab's content. He works with industry leaders. He established the Future of Reality Summit and has launched an immersive storytelling residency program, which will have its second iteration this summer in 2021. So I'm going to turn this over to Ryan, and he will introduce our panelists and we'll begin the program.
Thanks, Margaret. That was a very nice introduction, and I feel honored to be here and join our two special guests, Glenn Cantave and LB the Poet. There's a lot to talk about here, so what I'd love to do is just jump straight in. I'd like to start with the introduction of Glenn. He's been up to a lot, so excuse me if I read it. So Glenn is an activist, performance artist, and social entrepreneur who founded Movers and Shakers NYC. Movers and Shakers uses immersive technology to highlight the narratives of the oppressed. His team creates augmented reality experiences designed to disrupt and reframe social norms in the classroom, cultural institutions, and public spaces. Their work helps bring more equitable representation of diverse cultures to the classroom. Glenn is a resident at TED, and he was recently named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in education. I'd also like to introduce LB the Poet. LB has been writing poetry since the age of 12. And as we saw yesterday with Amanda Gorman's poem, the power of spoken word is just undeniable. His lyrics weave together a palpable and personal journey of love, adversity, family, community, and social issues. LB works and lives in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and is the founder of the Word Academy, a program that helps younger generations find their voice and express themselves through poetry within the Winston-Salem public school system. And he is also the founder of the Fear Academy, where he educates high school students and inner city youth in entrepreneurship. LB has been kind enough to kick things off with one of his poems today.
Yesterday, Every day I wake up with the hopes of being better than I was yesterday because lately they've been teaching hate. So not many people chose to show love yesterday. Somebody's mother didn't get that one last hug yesterday because violence breeds violence. And another young man lost his life to a slug yesterday. How many chose school over drugs yesterday? To be a scholar instead of a thug yesterday. I can't speak for the next, but I got it out the mud yesterday. I can tell you about the streets and the struggle or how I lost someone that I loved yesterday. Man, it is what it is, and it was what it was yesterday. A wise woman once told me that history repeats itself, and there is nothing new under the sun. And Revelations reveals restorations of everything on earth, including the sun. It has begun, and it didn't just begin yesterday. How long have we been praying for better days? Well, let me ask you this. What did you do to prepare for today yesterday? Thank you.
Thanks, LB. That was beautiful. I'd also like to I'd also like to give Glenn an opportunity to tell us more about what he's working on and take us through a few slides.
Thank you all so much for having me here. So my name is Glenn Cantave. I'm the founder of Movers and Shakers. Our mission is that we use augmented reality to write Black and Brown history into American curricula. Next slide. And so the beginning of our work really stemmed from like a problem that my co-founder Idris and I had as kids, and every Black and Brown kid in America has. You learn a skewed story in terms of history, and it's represented in our monuments, our public spaces, our cultural institutions, and our school curricula. And I remember learning about Christopher Columbus's boats when I was a kid and having to color them. Next slide. But our teachers never talked about the Taino slaves at the bottom of those boats as they were going back to Spain. Next slide. Nationwide, there are over 5,100 statues. There are 700 Confederate monuments, more than 700 Confederate and only 394 women. And this skewed distribution really speaks to... He's going to have to tell me that. Because... Sorry? Hello?
Okay. Somebody just needed to mute. We're good.
Okay. Either way, there's a skewed distribution of narratives in our public spaces all over. And when it comes to actually removing these monuments, there's an extreme tension. You look at what happened in Charlottesville, for example, and how that set the national conversation on this matter. Next slide. And in New York City, what we did is we started organizing teach-ins in public spaces across the city, trying to talk about the hypocrisy that lays the foundation of our cultural norms, of our systems, of our institutions. And so we based a lot of it in art and visual art and performance art. For example, we had a slave auction performance piece to tie Christopher Columbus to the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. I ran the New York City Marathon in chains to push for a change, and we were trying to get racist statues to fall and untold monuments and histories to rise. Next slide. Oh, go back. Back one. Okay, yeah, and we created an augmented reality installation to really tell these stories and condense information in thick books that most people don't read into something that children and adults would want to engage with and learn really quickly about facts they don't know about. Next slide. And so other performance pieces included I did a fast for Black History Month in Times Square, where it was a 30-day water fast to call for New York City to reimagine a more equitable distribution of resources and to humanize Black and Brown people. Next slide. It got some attention. AOC shared it on her Instagram, but then COVID happened and it shifted a lot of what we were doing. Next slide. And now with the emergence of this huge Black Lives Matter conversation, the monuments conversation is at the forefront of everything again. The statue in front of the Museum of Natural History was defaced and is actually slated to be removed. Next slide. And so that's where we're coming in with our monuments project. We're creating a collection of women, people of color, the LGBTQI+ community, the heroes that you don't learn about in school. And our vision is to create this ever-expanding catalog of these stories that you do not hear and make them accessible to everyone. And so we can put them up with or without permission, and we can make them any size and put them anywhere. Next slide. And so our vision long-term is to see these in places where you can't even imagine. So instead of just removing a statue, you could have Toussaint Louverture in front of where Columbus Circle is. And every child can know about the Haitian Revolution and its implications to what that means for modern day. Next slide. And so in accordance with COVID, what we did, it should play. Either way, the general idea is that instead of just seeing it in a public space, you can also see these monuments in your home or in a classroom, or if you're a student. And we want this catalog to be accessible to everyone, everywhere. And so for that reason, what we're doing is we're, for Ideas City, what we're launching is a partnership with the city of Winston-Salem and New Inc., where we're having an open call for monuments and local heroes in the Winston-Salem area that can be a part of this catalog. And so we're looking for first nominations for who you think it should be. And I'll share the form in the chat. If y'all can share that with your networks, it would be incredible. And then we're looking to get a committee to make decisions by early next month to feature these new monuments of local heroes for Idea City. But the beauty of this is that we like to think of the monuments as an entry point to a ever expanding catalog. So while you could learn about the local heroes in Winston-Salem, you'll also have the opportunity to see an ever expanding catalog of new monumental figures that you may not have learned about. So we like to think of it as like the Constitution, but like a woke version and a more representative version.
That's dope.
Thanks, Glenn. I've been working in augmented reality for 5 years and absolutely love what you're doing. And so just in terms of the way the panel will go is we've got a series of questions that we'd love to dig into with both Glenn and LB. But should anybody in the audience have some questions, we encourage you to please put it into the chat window, and Margaret will be helping me in terms of moderating those and fitting them in where we can. So obviously there's a lot to talk about here, and what I love about it is just looking at it from a racial equity standpoint, how you both are attacking this problem in completely different ways. And so it's nice to have you both here. And I have a question for you both, which is, as you look at building awareness and empathy for racial equity, how do you see art as a way of getting where other mediums don't? And specifically for your own art, how is your respective medium really making a difference?
Glenn, you want to go first?
I just spoke a lot, so.
Okay. Well, with poetry, as we saw yesterday, it's, to me, one of the most powerful art forms because you remove the melodies, you remove the instruments, and you have the vocals. So for me, really understanding who I am as an artist and understanding the equity that's available to be not necessarily handed to me, but that's there for me. It just took time because I'm not gonna sit here and say over the first 5 years of me performing, I didn't understand what equity really was. I didn't understand what I was going after. I didn't understand how to really place value upon myself and my art. For me, it's always just mainly been about helping, using my stories and the things that I've been through to relate to other people. And once it really started getting a little bit bigger and people started learning about my poetry and I started gaining a little bit of a following, I really started to learn my worth from going from the open mics with 15 to 20 people in them to a venue with 5,000 people, and it's a paid gig. If they cancel the gig, I'm still being paid for it. It's valuable, and that kind of led to Fear Academy, which FEAR is an acronym for Future Entrepreneurs Activating Reality. For me, being an artist is just half of it. You have to learn how to maneuver in business. You have to learn how to read these contracts and understand what's in them, because a lot of times as artists, that's how we lose our equity. We pass it off to someone else and we allow them to handle the business for us. So for me, it's been a great learning process. I have a wonderful kitchen cabinet that I rely on and go to for advice. So yeah, I'm learning as I'm growing, but also instilling the power of entrepreneurship in the youth. That has been a big part of my journey here recently. Because I tell anyone, if you can get an 8 or 9 year old comfortable speaking in front of a room full of people, you will change their lives. You will change the trajectory of their life. How many people on this call right now is comfortable standing up in front of the room and speaking comfortably? I guarantee it's not that many on here. So for me, it's I want to get these kids when they don't really want to raise their hand in class and the teacher's like, yeah, Mr. LB, don't mess with them, they're a little nervous, so just let them kind of be. Those are the kids I go after first because they have the most powerful voices. I know I can ramble, so I'm going to stop talking. Glenn, it's your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first thing is that, like, if you don't have the lived experience of living in this country and understanding what oppression means, there are obviously academic resources that are there, but at the end of the day, learning is requires time, it requires labor, and unlearning is a really intentional and rigorous process that most people don't have the time or energy to go through, or will to go through. So I think where our art comes into play is that um, it's like an entry point or like a carrot. Like at the end of the day, if this stuff was about, Black Panther or SpongeBob, like people would still be excited, I think. But it's the fact that we're doing like a bait and switch for social change that is what's really compelling. And so when we're testing our app out with students in classrooms, they have an immediate draw to the content because of the fact that it's something they haven't seen before. But then from there, it's our job to make sure that we're succinctly and effectively delivering information they need to know so they can see the world through a more nuanced lens.
Thanks. Yeah, and Glenn, maybe just to dive a little bit deeper for the folks that aren't as familiar with augmented reality, can you just talk about a little bit, just very basically, what exactly it is and the affordances that tech enables you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the textbook definition of augmented reality is that it is a medium where the digital world is superimposed in the physical world through a lens. So that lens could be a phone, it could be glasses, a windshield, whatever. And people use augmented reality all the time and don't think about it. So whether it's like the Snapchat filters or like any sort of filter where you're changing up your face, people know about Pokemon Go. There are lots of use cases that happen through it. And so originally we were thinking about pursuing virtual reality for our activism and campaigns, but the beauty of AR is that most Americans have smartphones, and so the content itself is more accessible to the audiences that we need to get out to. We can create it quicker, it's cheaper, and it still has that wow factor that captivates your attention so that you can deliver a message.
One thing I really like about the medium too is that it gives you the ability to take over something, right? So even if text was written for a different purpose, you could actually use that text as a marker and trigger your own content off of it. So it gives you a bit of freedom off of existing assets or statues or locations, and lets you get your message across too.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and LB, obviously, in my research, getting to know you and your craft, a lot of life experiences helped you find your voice. Can you tell us about that and your journey as you became a poet?
Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, my sixth grade principal, Mrs. DeMosic, is she's one of the catalysts for creating LB the poet. Sixth grade, I'll keep it short because the story it can go. But sixth grade, my grandmother passed. The day after I went to school, I thought I was strong enough. I was one of those kids that didn't want to miss any days. I wanted perfect attendance. So I still went to school, but I cried. Whenever something's wrong, if someone says, "Well, what's wrong? Or are you okay?" it's like the floodgates opens. That happened first thing in the morning. My principal came, took me out of class. She gave me a pen and a pad, and she told me, Larry, write down your emotions. No one can judge you off of what you put into this notepad. And I sat in her office and I wrote for the remainder of the day. And when she came back in and read the poem, she cried. She sent it to my mother. My mother cried. My mother, everybody who read that first piece of poetry, cried. And it was my purest emotions being let out. And someone who was an administrator gave me the release of saying, no one can ever judge you off for what you put into this pad. And from that time forward, I've been writing poetry. I actually started performing back in 2009 in Greensboro. That was like my first little realm of open mics. And from there, it's been North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, all the way out to Las Vegas doing poetry. So the door kind of opened up, but I tell people all the time, and I've searched for her, I've tried to find her. Mrs. DeMosic is one of the main catalysts behind LB the Poet. It was sixth grade. Yeah, teachers don't realize the power that they can have, or some of them do, over a student's life, because she completely changed my life. Now poetry is in every aspect of my life, from performance to teaching to writing books to stage plays to poetic reels, which is where we take a poem and we turn it into a short film. I've literally taken poetry and implemented it in every aspect of life. So I give all praise to the Most High first, but Mrs. DeMosic had a big part of creating LB the Poet.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm relatively new to Winston-Salem. I've lived in Winston-Salem now for just about 3 years. And one thing I didn't realize when I moved here is that Maya Angelou lived a large portion of her life in Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up question to that, how did her presence in the community help enable you, shape you, and how do you feel her craft when she was doing it has evolved since then?
So what's crazy, I would say less than a year prior to me starting to write poetry, fifth grade, I was the news anchor for the school. Um, and Dr. Maya Angelou came to my elementary school, and because I was the news anchor, I got to meet her in fifth grade. So that's something that's always kind of stuck out. Like I met her, and the following year I started to write poetry and really understand how powerful that art craft is. And yes, her art form, you can hear, you heard her yesterday. You saw the influence of her poetry. Did you see the ring that had the caged bird? It's little subtle things like that. And honestly, um, Dr. Angelou she she was like the blueprint. She had presidents that were friends. Oprah was a close friend, and she utilized her words to empower the people. That's what I understand, that my life purpose is to speak life into others, and poetry is just one of the ways that I'm able to do that. And Dr. Angelou gracefully blessed us with her presence. Um, I can't speak high enough about that woman, to be honest. I always like kind of shake when I start thinking. It's just to be an artist, to be a poet, to be walking in this light, to understand what it is to be full time in the arts. I'm a full time artist. This is how I make my living. I understand. I can't even say I understand. I try to comprehend what it could have been for her doing this years ago, and being the voice for the people, because that's what people expect us as poets to be, the voice of the community. We speak about the things that no one else wants to speak about. So to know that she was doing that back then, along with the other phenomenal ancestors who were poets, it's powerful, to say the least.
And to turn it back to you, Glenn. So obviously you're working in augmented reality is really focused on the youth. So, I'm curious about what your response that you're getting from the youth has been, what you're seeing as the pedagogical impact, and how you're sort of helping with knowledge retention or whatever outcomes to prove that augmented reality is a really effective tool for getting across the message you're trying to get across. But I also think it ties in really nicely with Nicole's question in the chat, which is, what's the ultimate potential do you see for reaching the Black and brown youth with tools like augmented reality?
Yeah, sure. So when we were testing out our first product, Unsung, it talks about the stories of four Black female singers who've used their voices to fight for social change in different times. We merged English pedagogy with it, and we tested it out with students that were on the lower performing end and had behavioral issues in the Bronx. And the immediate, like, the pain points they were talking about was that, like, for various reasons they were not interested in reading, period. And when we merged our AR experience with a few questions and a few passages, like, they were instantly drawn to it. They found the app to be intuitive, and in a sense they were breaking the app because they would, like, take their phone and like go really high up or try and zoom in and like think on all these ways. They thought about all these ways to use that we just didn't as boring adults, right? And so from that was like a really nice validator that, like, they were interested in the content itself, but then from there they like immediately asked for more. They wanted to do more activities, including the reading passages and answering the questions. And so in a sense it's like a carrot or an incentive to get the kids to progress through content. So in terms of what we're exploring for learning outcomes, we're still in pretty early stages because it's been a recent shift for merging with pedagogy. And what we do understand right now is that a lot of teachers have told us that there are kids that like are just bored from like having information on static books. Like they're competing. The textbook and the spelling book is competing with TikTok and Snapchat and Fortnite. Like that's where the kids are on right now. There's no dynamic educational content that even comes close. And so the other issue is that, like, there are not just visual learners, there are kinesthetic learners where you use your body, there are audio learners, there are visual learners. And so the fact that our app engages students in those different ways is really interesting, and something we're trying to, it's something that we're looking to validate as far as understanding what it means for a student to be engaged and if that translates to actual outcomes in terms of retention. But because right now we're a supplement to education and we're not just replacing all curricula, we wouldn't have the data to say whether or not we're increasing literacy rates, for example. But the promise of what we're looking to do is the fact that today I showed like the public AR monument side, but with these AR monuments, we're also creating a centralized database of primary source documents and archives that are usually behind paywalls and decentralized throughout the country. And so we're doing the legwork to bring it all together. We're attaching pedagogy to it. And in the long term, the vision is to have like a nonlinear textbook, essentially, of all these stories that you don't hear, that's ever expanding over time. And because it would be accessible on your phones, and over time, the actual devices will get smaller, AR will be more accessible. Not only will it be accessible to more Black and brown students, it's going to be accessible to students, to people in general, as what could be a utility.
Hey Glenn, if I can ask, how are you going about gaining your data or your data from the schools, or from the students that you work with? Because what you're doing, bro, like, I know that the data will show the rise in test scores if you're getting these kids to read, simply because off of one semester, I've seen the reading assessments from the only change in the school was them implementing the poetry curriculum. and the scores jump through the roof. So for what you're talking about, I can we're gonna have to talk and connect.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My bad. Go ahead, Ryan.
And no, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and Glenn as well. So I used to work for a company called Blipper, which at one point was the most well-funded AR platform. And so my team worked a lot on education platforms as well. So we have some of that data that could help you. Although I don't work there anymore, we do still have some of that data that might be able to help you in some form or another. Prove that the value of the tech, prove the value of the lessons in that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to chat afterwards.
That's great.
Would
That's
love
great.
to talk both of y'all. That's awesome.
Well, and just to dive a little deeper in that, and for the folks in the panel, Glenn, could you tell us about just give one example of a lesson, go a little bit deeper on it? I know you talked about the Christopher Columbus example in your intro, but what's an example of something that's often or always neglected from an educational standpoint that you're addressing with your products?
In terms of like a story?
Yeah, specifically, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and when I give longer presentations, I usually go into the story of Toussaint Louverture. That was the monument that you saw standing in front of Columbus Circle. So he was the leader of the Haitian Revolution. And the Haitian Revolution was the first and only slave revolt that resulted in the creation of a new state. Now, the reason why it's such a significant moment in history isn't just because of what happened in Haiti, but it's because of its implications of in terms of contemporary state formation in North America and South America. So basically the Haitian Revolution crippled the French economy, and it ended in 1804. In the early 1800s, I think it was 1803, if I'm not mistaken. That's when the Louisiana Purchase happened. So Thomas Jefferson approached Napoleon, and like the middle of the country today was controlled by France. He said, "You need money. We want the land. We're going to buy the land." And so it doubled the size of the United States essentially overnight. And then Simon Bolivar, who was having his own revolution against the Spanish in South America, needed support for his forces. And so he approached the Haitians and he said, we need your support. We're trying to do the same thing that you did. And the Haitians said, "We got you on the condition that you have no slaves," because the Haitian Constitution itself said that if you are Black and you step foot on Haitian soil, then you are free. They were completely, and it was like obviously an anomaly in the Western Hemisphere when every other country around them was a slave state. And so what that meant in terms of the mood of the slaves all around, especially in Louisiana when the word got out, it's incredible. And so the reason why this story is so significant is because, through historical exclusion or whitewashing of history, we are implicitly and explicitly told that we don't matter, our history doesn't matter, that we didn't really do anything. But can you imagine if every Black kid in America knew that story and what that would mean as far as what you can do when you're facing these systems that seem like they're not going to change? Like, this was a slave revolt. Toussaint Louverture was a slave, So that's one example of, like for me, this is like an education experience in myself, a learning experience in myself that I'm selfishly taking on. This is just to learn stories like this. It's that I never got as a kid is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the awakening I had when I read Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, and representing the perspectives of everyone from the Native Americans to slaves to things that happened in World War II, and how I felt a little bit screwed over, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of I'd gone to a college level education, taken numerous history classes, and I was finding out this information for the very first time. And so to change gears a little bit, LB, going back to you, I have to pay respect that you are tasked with a difficult job, which is you're trying to get shy kids to get up, to craft their own poetry and get up and share their poetry. how do you do that?
Honestly, the biggest secret is I don't tell them that they're going to share it. So we go through the entire workshop. I make it fun. I essentially look to bring two completely different things that you would never think would go together. So give me um, give me 5 positive words about the nostalgia of your childhood, or give me 5 positive memories from your childhood. Now give me 5 negative memories. Now give me 5 positive thoughts about ice cream. Now give me 5 negative thoughts about ice cream. And now we're going to use all of those words to create a powerful piece of poetry based around life can be sweet sometimes. It's crazy and it sounds outlandish, but I I've come up with a formula from the way that I think. I developed a curriculum off of how I write poetry. Don't get me wrong, I can teach slam poetry. I can teach you how to write a haiku. I can teach every different style. But I choose to teach free verse. I choose to use poetry for more of the therapeutic side of things instead of the competition. I believe I'm a Grand Slam champion when it comes to slam poetry, but I also understand that you're teaching kids to judge each other's poetry, to judge one another's emotions. So I choose to use it for therapy and getting them comfortable with expressing themselves. First, we have to get it on the paper, and then it's all right. I go around the class and I'll write a random number on certain kids' paper, and then I say, all right, everybody make some noise for number 4, and then the whole class makes noise, and then they look around like I have a number 4 on my paper, and yes, we all are going to have to get up in front of one another, and then the class is like we all have. Yes, so I never tell anyone who's on this call, if you're going to have me involved with your students, please don't tell them that they're going to end up presenting poetry at the end of it. But that's one of the secrets to getting it done and making it fun, man. I try to make people smile. A lot of times people don't smile, or people haven't been encouraged for the day. A lot of these kids just, it's like they're robotic. They wake up, they go to school, they come home, they may do homework, then they get on the game, and that's kind of the end of it. We have to change the way that they're thinking, and their actions will follow.
Gotcha. Yeah, and as I prepared for this panel today, as a technologist, I could talk about augmented reality all day long, and it's something that I've been working on for a while. So I get that, although it may be new for many people on the call. But one thing that I just can't seem to wrap my head around is obviously LB the poet, and then also LB the educator in terms of entrepreneurship. How does poetry and entrepreneurship collide or intersect?
It goes hand in hand. Understanding that you can have a great product, but if you don't have the proper branding and marketing, then that product is going to sit on the shelf. There are thousands of poets out here, but there aren't many poets who have a curriculum that's in the school system. Um, for me, it was, again, taking the time to understand the business and not just say I can create these pretty words or these words that punch you in your stomach or your chest, metaphorically. Um, is more than that. So creating the T-shirts or creating just a brand around LB the Poet, I understood that I am a businessman, but I'm a businessman. It's one of those where when you place value upon yourself, and it's I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full of poetry. It took my wife to say, okay, let's pick some of the best ones out of this and create you a book. And now you have this book to sell and to put online and to place in these different places and to put in stores. But if I was only the poet that I was when I first began, I wasn't thinking about business. I wasn't thinking about creating a book. I wasn't thinking about T-shirts or pens or the little pins that go on your suit jacket. I wasn't thinking about those type of things, or even like the copper jewelry or the beaded jewelry that I wear and I represent. When I first started wearing that, and then I became a brand ambassador for it, and I started getting paid every time someone went out and purchased something that looked like my jewelry. It helped me understand equity. It helped me understand the value of who I am and what I bring to the table. So entrepreneurship and arts, it goes hand in hand in every aspect of it. I don't care what your art form is. If you master it and you truly master it, you should be getting paid for it. It's no, we have to place the value on art. A lot of times the art gets kind of pushed down to the bottom of the bottom, and it's like, yeah, can you do this poem for us for free? It's like, I can, but I took time. The people who are going to hear it, their life is going to be changed when they leave. There's value in that. There's value in bringing awareness to the issues that some people will never choose to speak on. There's value in getting kids comfortable speaking in front of people, one. Two, speaking without getting emotional. Like, one thing that I realized with some of my fourth graders, I guess 2 years ago now, is the fights went down, the arguments in the classroom went down. They became a lot more friendly, and it was because they were learning how to express themselves. A lot of times people argue and they get loud because their argument isn't good. So if you can help people learn how to express, it'll change their life, and poetry is a catalyst for that, for me.
That's interesting. And a question for you both, and maybe starting with Glenn, is, everyone's been through so much in 2020. 2021 is going to, I think we're all optimistic, but it's also going to be a challenging year. When you think about racial equity, you think about COVID, you think about the political polarization, and you're both working with kids. How do you convey that message of positivity and perseverance and optimism in some ways that you, as an incoming generation, can make the world a better place?
So I think there's something that's inherent in the work that we're doing that's saying, like, when you're learning about people that look like you, it does something to you. It says that you matter, first off. And like, we want to make it clear that like this is something that like we didn't have as kids, and like the older generations didn't have. And the result of that is the world that we're living in today. But we're here to switch that up and to change that. And first off is just that you matter. The second thing is, we want to point the kids in the right direction, as far as we're not just talking about representation for the sake of checking a box, but rather, what does it mean to live in a world where we're memorializing people who weren't extractive, who weren't colonialists, who weren't genocidal maniacs, that, you know, actually their actual truth that they lived in was about equity, was about justice, was about well-being for all. I think that a function of those powerful ideas will be kids that just like see the world in a different way, in the same way that, like, you know, before everyone knew about what to do about recycling, it wasn't a thing, right? Now everyone knows how to recycle. You know better, you do better. I think it's going to be a similar thing with this next generation. But one main thing that we need to get across is that the civil rights movement didn't happen overnight. It was a decade-long process, and we need to be very clear and intentional in the fact that this isn't just like a snap your fingers instant gratification situation, but like this is a process. You need to then take this information, take it to your parents, take it to your friends, show people, share. And that's why we actually have a feature where, as students are curating their own AR monuments gallery in their home, they can then, you know, record presentations of what they've learned, share it with each other online. And we're looking to create a culture, really, both in terms of at home while there's COVID, but also in the public spaces where people are gathering together, where people are having fun. We're taking the labor out of learning, and then, you know, leaving with new insights that they can carry with them and share.
You drop a lot of gems, Glenn.
Right back at you.
Taking the labor out of learning. But for me, the first thing, and if you're on this call, excuse me, if you don't take anything else from anything that I said, I want you to remember this part. Every day is WINSDAY. Every day that you wake up and you're able to make the statement, it is a Wednesday. You won for the day. Anything that comes after you open your eyes is a bonus. So appreciate life in that light. Appreciate it that way. And it will change. Everything will change for you. That's the first thing that I tell my kids. Second thing, remove the word try completely out of your vocabulary and watch how your life changes. Stop trying to do it. Just start doing it. Just start doing it. Be intentional with what you want out of your life and watch what happens. You change your thoughts and your actions will follow in every case of it. So for me, I choose to make learning fun. I choose to be relatable. I want to meet them on their level. There's no reason for me to try to say, hey, come up here to where you feel like you think I am. Because technically I'm on your level. I've been there. Wherever you are, I've been there. So let me meet you there and let's elevate together. And that's how I choose to work with my kids.
Well, so no doubt your work has the ability to build awareness, inspire people, educate people. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about reaching people. Obviously, you're reaching people who are woke, and then you're also reaching people who are in denial, disconnected, maybe unable to feel that empathy for because that's not the background they come from. How do you sort of think about your messaging and reaching these two different audiences?
Is that for me?
Both of you.
Sure. I would say that at least for the students in the school, it's really a matter of just getting past the first barrier of entry, which is the school administration. So once that happens, then we essentially have a captive audience, and like it's their homework. They have to learn it regardless, right? And so one of the things we're looking to explore right now is exactly like what is that fine line as far as the barrier of entry. Like there's on a scale of like Huey Newton with the guns going into the state capitol to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, the whitewashed version, like how can we get in and get that message across? I mean, that's really the big question that we're looking to solve for. Now, in terms of a public engagement process, augmented reality is opt-in. You have to come, you have to show up. So the first natural audience is the woke folk, but at the same time, that's why we're exploring ways to gamify what we're doing and to turn it into something that is where it's seen as, yes, this is an exciting history project, but at the same time, it's something fun to do where you can show up and you can bring your kids, and then you're inviting other audiences that wouldn't ordinarily just show up to a protest.
Gotcha. That's great.
For me as a poet, and I'm just gonna be completely honest, I'm very intentional about punching people in the face with art, and that's the best metaphor. It's the best way I could put it. Whether you're woke, sleep, too woke, hit the snooze button, either or, you can get this work. If you're in the audience and you're there for it, you know what you came for. So for me, excuse me, I used to be one of those artists that would kind of look at the crowd and be like, okay, I'm not going to perform this tonight, or okay, I'm going to hold this one back. But you just get to the point where it's like people need it. If you're silent, you're not helping the cause. If you're timid, if you're stepping timidly around the issue at hand, you're really not going to make a change. So for me, it's not really turning it on and off depending on if the crowd is woke or not. It's being very intentional about making sure everyone hears it, whether they're woke or not. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's great. So maybe now's a good time to jump to an audience question. So Christina Soriano had a question, which is, could we consider a monuments project that works within schools to have kids imagine themselves as the subject of a monument in their city, inviting them to consider what they'd be known for, design what they would look like in VR in the monument and how they would want the community to see them.
That's fire.
It is a really interesting and exciting idea. I would say that like anything is possible. Right now, we're really like laser focused on just getting like the basics right for our app. We're launching with 7 monuments on February 17th. So we're really excited for that. And then we're also doing we're also launching the local heroes of Winston-Salem on April 17th.
Oh, you went on mute, Glenn.
You're muted. You're muted,
Oh
Glenn.
no, I just said a lot of stuff. What was the last thing you heard me say?
April 17th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, on April 17th, we're sharing the Winston-Salem monuments at Ideas City. I just shared the nomination form. If y'all could share that with your networks as well for who you think could be a monument, that would be great. But at the same time, what was I gonna say? But yeah, but at the same time, we're looking to speak with educators once we have that basis as far as like how we can expand the pedagogy. So if you could reach out to me at glenn@shakers.tech, we could definitely talk about how we can adapt that as an exercise, but we couldn't fundamentally change like how the app works at this stage because we're in a design sprint right now.
Gotcha. Thanks. That's great. So I know we're coming up on time. So what I want to make sure is there's enough time for everybody if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions. But while everyone's thinking of their question, I had one more kind of grandiose sort of out there question for you both. And your interpretation of the question is your own. So I'm not gonna rephrase the question in a way that sort of almost makes it biased as far as how you should answer it. But I want to ask you both is, what is your ultimate vision for an equitable society? No one is unmuted yet. I don't have the Jeopardy music on standby. I wish I did though, but I know it's a big question. And so what I'm interested in is sort of what's your vision? What are you working towards?
An equitable society. For me, it is creating a funnel from elementary school through college. With the Word Academy brand, helping students from 3rd and 4th grade all the way through college, and getting my college students to help my high school to help middle to help down below. And the thought of teaching entrepreneurship. So the school is actually going to open this year. Word Academy is set to open this year in Winston-Salem. I'll be announcing it a little bit later. But the thought of the funnel of artists and entrepreneurs coming from elementary school. My youngest entrepreneur that I've worked with, she's now 11, about to be 12. When we started working together, she was 9. She started at one of my teen events. From there, she went to Marketplace Mall with a storefront. Then she went to a bigger mall, which is Haynes Mall, with a storefront. Now she just opened up her second location in a different city. So when you get these kids, when you teach them about entrepreneurship and you teach them the values in business, you can change their lives. So not only is she working with her company, but her parents are helping out, her siblings are helping out, and that's creating equity within her family. They're each creating different businesses and running those. So for me, it's like, how can I implement this mindset into the community? If you can get the kids, don't get me wrong. I'm all for helping adults. I consult with adults on business, on poetry, on arts, all of the above. But for me, it's about that next generation. So I think that they're the move. So back to what I was saying, creating the funnel, and I'm in the midst with an app creator about creating Word Society. which will be a society for artists, entrepreneurs, producers. It will essentially be an app for creatives to collaborate. You have songwriters, you have rappers, you have singers, you have producers, you have artists that have come through the Word Academy program, and then they'll end up going on to the app and yada yada yada. That's it in a nutshell. I can talk for 2 hours, and I'm trying to not run down another rabbit hole. So, Glenn, it is on you.
Okay.
Then what's your ultimate vision for an equitable society?
Yeah, I think it's a world where love is obvious on the micro and macro levels at all times. So on the micro level, it's literally people looking out for each other. If someone like a culture where, if you see someone down, you support them as if they were your family member. You can do that through gestures, actions, time, but like something where it's not just all about me, 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 me. On the macro level, I think that is very clear as far as they say that budgets are moral blueprints. There needs to be systems in place of accountability for people that take too much, but at the same time, there needs to be systems in place that give everyone a fair shot. Not just a fair shot, but like a dignified life. And then yeah, I mean, like I personally, I think that like it's everyone should have like a solid like baseline as far as living conditions, and then if you know how to go to Mars and you can figure out how to do that, go get paid, do your thing. But I don't think that should be the expense of anyone else living a dignified life.
Beautiful.
Great answer, Glenn. That was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
I'd like to chime in too. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you, Glenn and LB and Ryan. My gosh, you've really just helped us kick off our new year, 2021, with so much positivity. And I would just like to say, I'd like to share a vision that I have for the world would be just community, empathy, democracy, and unity, just working together to make this a better place, and how we can all do our jobs by reaching out and helping each other. So that's what we're trying to do at our company. But this has been great. Does anyone have any questions? I think we've answered a lot of the ones in the chat. Ryan was a very adept moderator and was able to handle most of them. I know that Glenn shared the link about his project. And Destiny, if you want to put the slides back up, we wanted to just share a few more offerings that's coming up for as part of Movers and as part of Momentum, and also the next steps with Idea Cities Winston-Salem. Again, there's the link about Momentum. If you're interested, please check us out. The next project with Idea Cities Winston-Salem will be February 3rd, and it's a focus on scale. It'll be an hour and 15 minutes, I think, February 3rd to 5 to 6-ish. And they've got some amazing speakers. Again, it'll be speakers from the New Ink Museum in New York with local entrepreneurs here in Winston-Salem. So we're having this connectivity between New York and Winston-Salem, which we love. So that's how to register for the Bonfire, the beta Bonfire on February 3rd. And if you're part of this link, this event, you can probably register or let us know if you want that link, and we'll send it to you. And then the next slide, we want to share that this is a project that Ryan, our moderator, is hosting. He has an amazing immersive storytelling residency program. And Ryan, if you want to talk about that, you can. We just wanted to make sure we shouted out about it because you're looking for people to apply, right?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my lab, the Media and Emerging Technology Lab, we use emerging technologies for storytelling. So we work a lot with virtual reality and augmented reality among game engines and other tech. But what we found is that oftentimes developers don't know screenwriters and screenwriters don't know 3D artists. So we created this residency program to bring together these three distinct skill sets and make them functional to be able to build an immersive experience of their choosing. So this residency program pays a stipend of $3,500 a month and it's a 6-month residency. And these three folks will come together and decide on what story they're gonna tell, whether that's a documentary, fiction, but all we ask is that it does social good. And once they choose this, they'll spend the next 6 months building it out. And then we'll provide them with mentors and support and access to film festival communities to be able to help get the word out there and share their experience with the world once it's completed.
Right. So if you know anybody that would be a good fit for this, please tell Ryan and he can send them the information, or you can just send them the information. And it's very prominently on the UNC School of the Arts website. If you just go into METL, METL, you can find it.
I've also dropped my email in the chat too, just in case.
Oh, great. Thank you. So what's our next? Oh, okay. And CCE has a program open right now. Our Kinetic Boot Camp is perfect for all of you all that have ideas that are ready to, that you want to work on and try to find customers for and turn your idea into reality. And our applications are open through January 31st. Destiny's going to put the link in the chat. The link is right there on the slide as well, but she'll put it in there. So we would love it if you would share that. And then the next momentum will be, we're taking a bit of a break from the Bonfire theme, but we're gonna next month, February 18th, we're gonna feature an amazing videographer that's gonna help us talk about, is video right for your business? And he's going to really his team is going to be about the when, where, and how of effective video. So we hope you'll join us. You can sign up through our Zoom account the same way you did this time. And I think that's all we have. Yeah. So thank you all so much for joining us. I want to make sure I shout out my wonderful colleague, Destiny Charles, who has been guiding us through and producing this. And also Suzanne Moore is on the call, I think somewhere, but anyway, so we are very excited to, our staff is growing and we'll be adding another person next week. I think she's on the call. There's Nicole Gentles. She's joining us as our marketing coordinator, marketing and events coordinator. So CCE is, again, it will be fully staffed by next week. But thank you, Glenn, you're amazing. And LB, you are amazing as always. And Ryan, you just wove that in beautifully for everyone and helped us bring out the true north of these two amazing artists and helping us understand more about their work.
Yeah, my job's easy when you have two amazing panelists like these. So glad I got to be the one to ask the questions.
Thank y'all. Thank you. Y'all are so great. Thank you for doing this. This was much needed. This was a super, super, super phenomenal discussion. I appreciate being a part of it, and I look forward to everything you guys have coming moving forward.
Yeah, honored to be a part of this space with y'all, sharing space with y'all, and yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, well, thank you. Awesome, awesome. Everybody is very happy today, it seems like. If there's are there any other final questions? Any other comments, thoughts? I know we had some really amazing people on this call. We have a few minutes left if anybody has any. Great stuff. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say we are out. If that's it, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, LB. You all were amazing. And thank you for doing such amazing work and helping us understand the history, this amazing history that is so underreported and misunderstood. And LB, thanks for all that you're doing in the schools and helping our youth understand their voice and actually come into their own. And I love what you said about elevate together, speak life into others and elevate together. What amazing sentiment. I think we should all try to do that. Elevate others, and that elevates us. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you next month. Bye.
Thank y'all.
Okay.
Bless.
Bye.